So, a Catholic news agency says priests in Arizona could face felony charges if they fail to report child abuse learned during confession. This is oftentimes this topic comes up of, well, what if a priest, hears about a crime or hears about an intention to commit a crime or something like that, or hears about some kind of abuse that's ongoing and that will continue? Shouldn't the priest report that? And many times states have tried to enact laws to force priests to do that at the threat of some kind of jail time if they don't. And this is just the latest iteration of this. We saw this earlier last year with Washington State. Eventually, that did get overturned, and I think the bishops there sued and had that overturned, which is great. But this is just the latest iteration of this, and again, it bears repeating that we actually present why this is a bad idea, because I really do understand why this sounds like a good idea. And I do understand why it sounds like it sounds like an immoral thing to oppose this. It sounds like you're trying to just allow people to get away with this, and that is not the case at all. But here's why this is a bad idea. Okay. And I talked about this, I think, earlier this week. So sorry if this is too repetitive, but let's say this is a thing. Let's say the Catholic Church says, okay, you know what? If there is some kind of abuse, or if there's an intent to commit a crime, or there's an ongoing crime, we will report that to law enforcement. Let's say the Catholic Church said that today. The Pope came out and said that today. It will never happen, but let's say that it does. Okay, so now everybody who is doing these things doesn't go to confession anymore. And you have not only defeated the purpose of your law, which is to have priests turn these people in. Now that they can't turn them in because they're not coming to confession, because they know they're going to get turned in. But you've also taken away the spiritual benefits that one in these situations would gain from going to confession. When somebody goes to confession, they don't just go there and say, hey, yeah, I'm doing these horrible things and they're illegal. And then the priest goes, all right, buddy, you're forgiven. Take it easy. Go have a good one. That's not what happens. The priest gives advice. The priest talks to you and says, why are you doing this? Stop doing this. Here's why you should stop doing this. The priest gives practical advice of what to do to get away from these sins. The priest will obviously pray for this person, which does have effect, believe it or not. And the priest will ultimately, yes, deliver absolution. And exorcists have said that absolution carries the weight, has the power of over 1,000 exorcisms. So let's say there's some kind of demonic influence causing this person to do this. I know that sounds crazy to people who might not be religious, but listen to the Exorcist files and then tell me I'm crazy, okay? There are witnesses to exorcisms. There's often several witnesses to each exorcism. These people have seen crazy things, and these stories are corroborated by multiple eyewitnesses. Exorcisms don't happen with just the priest and the possessed person. It's the priest, it's somebody holding the possessed person down so they don't harm the priest, and it's at least a few other people praying the rosary or praying something, usually the rosary, as the priest is carrying out this exorcism. So these exorcisms are witnessed by several people, at least like half a dozen people each time. And they all corroborate that these crazy things do happen that are only explicable by some kind of a preternatural force, demonic force. So all of that is to say, if somebody is being led by the demonic to do these horrible acts, and they go to confession, and that confession delivers the power of 1,000 exorcisms, as exorcists often say that the sacrament carries, then that's a great way to stop this person from doing this. And it's a way better way to have a priest there who, at least, even if you have a secular view that confession doesn't do anything, if you're an atheist, you don't believe in confession does anything, it is at least better for somebody to have a place to go to talk about this, and for a priest to give advice and to admonish them and say, stop doing this, to reprimand them, than for them to not do that for fear that they're going to be turned in, and then just keep this to themselves, keep doing this in silence and in secret, and nobody ever has a chance to intervene in any way because of fear that they're going to go and commit and get turned in, essentially. So that is my argument for why this is just a really bad idea to require priests to report these things. It's not going to have the effect that is intended. And let's just read through a little bit of this article. So again, this is from Catholic News Agency. They say Arizona bill would hit priests with felony if they fail to break confessional seal to report abuse. Now, priests are um, they are required to keep the seal of confession. If they do break the seal of confession, they will be laicized and excommunicated, and that is something that no priest wants to have happen. And in fact, priests are perfectly willing to go to jail rather than have that happen. So if you are somebody who is in Arizona or any state where they have some kind of a law like this, which by the way, this isn't law yet, this is a proposed law. But even if you're in a state where this is law, you should still feel safe in going to confession, even if you have to even if you have to confess some kind of a serious sin that might be an illegal crime. Priests will not break the seal of confession, even if there's a law about it. Whatever, they would much rather go to jail. They'd be happy to go to jail for the sake of their faith. So don't worry. Do not abstain from going to confession. Always go to confession, please. Even if you're scared of something, the priest is not going to break the seal of confession, and you are denying yourself the forgiveness that comes from confession. You're denying yourself a restored relationship with Jesus Christ for fear of something that is not going to happen. So go to confession, please. All right. So here's what they say, Catholic News Agency. A proposed law in Arizona could see priests facing felony charges if they fail to break the seal of confession after learning of child abuse during the sacrament. The measure, HB 2039, was introduced in December 2025 by State Representative Anastasia Travers. It is awaiting action in the State House after Travers pre-filed it on December 4th. The bill would amend the state code to require priests to report abuse learned during confession if they have, quote, reasonable suspicion to believe that the abuse is ongoing, will continue, or may be a threat to other minors. Failure to report a reportable offense could lead to a Class 6 felony charge under the bill. Those charges in Arizona could lead up to $150,000 in fines and up to 2 years of imprisonment. Now, again, let's say this does become law. Priests would so happily serve that 2 years in prison rather than break the seal of confession. Priests are some of the strongest men that you will ever meet, and they are not afraid of secular governments. So have no fear. This is, first of all, it's probably not going to become law. I think the church will successfully sue against this, likely. And if it does become law, they're not going to abide by it. So I'm not too worried about it. They say Travers did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the bill and why she proposed it. She previously filed a similar bill in 2023. Lawmakers in multiple U.S. states in recent years have moved to require priests to violate the seal of confession as part of a mandatory reporting laws. One such law in Washington state suffered a dramatic defeat in July 2025 after a federal court blocked the measure on First Amendment grounds. The rule had drawn rebuke from U.S. bishops, the White House, Orthodox church leaders, and other advocates. The state backed off the law. Great. Similar measures in Delaware, Vermont, Wisconsin, and Montana have been proposed over the past few years, though none have come to pass. One such law was proposed in Hungary in October 2025, that's kind of strange because I thought Hungary was super based. I don't know if that ended up passing. In 2019, California lawmakers proposed and then backed off a similar bill. Yes, this keeps happening where they're like, we're going to propose this bill, and then there's a large outcry about it, and then they back off. And maybe, hopefully, it's because they also realize that this is just a stupid idea that's not going to result in what they think it's going to result in, or what they hope is going to result in. Godbath says, this makes me seriously concerned. I live in Arizona, and I knew we were in a very dark place when they passed Proposition 139. I don't know what that is, but that is unfortunate. I run a mom's hangout group comprised of Catholics and non-Catholics. We're doing the Bible in a year by Ascension together. Nice. Please keep us in your intentions. We have over 1.1 thousand members. Awesome. That's so exciting. Keep it up. Priests fear no man, they fear God. Very true. As a hospital chaplain, I can securely say there is nothing that can override confessional seals. No judge, court, or jury can override confessional seals of ministers. Very true. The seal of confession is sacred tradition, and we cannot allow lawmakers to impose any restrictions on sacred tradition. Yeah. Very, very true. Zimac9313 says, "Hi, just encountering your podcast. That's awesome about giving out rosaries and instruction pamphlets. We make rosary in our rosary group at my TLM parish and give them out throughout the world." Nice. Yes. That's awesome. Keep up the good work. SWS, look at my comments up there. All right, Ryan, let me search. That includes Protestant ministers. I've known Protestant ministers who have been questioned by judges and have held their ground to say they are not at liberty to speak about confessions. Based, very based. Thank you, Protestant ministers. Very cool. That's awesome. What's going on in Venezuela? Italian leftists protest in favor of Maduro as 50 years ago they did the same in favor of Khomeini. Crazy people. Yeah. How could anyone enforce such a law if the priest doesn't break it anyway? Who would know? Exactly. That's another point. Like, this is unenforceable. So let's say, I guess the only way that this could be enforced is if a priest hears the confession, the person goes out and gets arrested for that crime that they confessed, and then that person snitches out the priest, I guess. That's the only way that that could really happen, which I don't see why that would happen. Like, why would you snitch out a priest who you confess to? Maybe the state would be like, "Hey, we'll give you a lesser sentence if you snitch out any clergy who you told this to before who didn't report it." Like, I don't know, maybe they would have some kind of a um, sentencing bargain like that. I'm not sure, but yeah, it does seem highly unenforceable.